Yo, what's up guys? It's Bro Cobra here. Me and Brandon, a Pro Tour limited competitor, went over the white part for War of the Spark. We got in some deep heated discussions on which cards you should play, how good they were, whether they were the A+, best of the best, you can't beat them if you draft them, or if they're an F-, you should never take them into your hands at all. Like, they're like the plague, like you need to just burn them and then toss them under the rug. So stay tuned, they're all pretty long. This is just the white part of the set, but we do have the full set review, and yeah. Have fun.
We should probably do plus here. So it's a little bit bigger. So we're going to be doing A through F, and we're also going to be adding pluses and minuses because we want to kind of hedge how we feel about cards, just to have some leniency one way or the other. And so to get a better justification of how good a card is or how bad a card is, we're going to be using pluses and minuses, but it's mainly just A to F. For me, I'm going to say it's an F+.
Is an F+ worse than an F-? Or better?
It's better. It's closer to D. But I think it could be a D+ if you're able to maybe have it in draft, and you're able to draft 5 or more. I think 5 is probably my sweet spot.
I think it's not just 5. I think you also need some proliferate. Like, you need to be proliferating those cats. And if you could do that, that's pretty powerful. Like,
yeah, because it puts it on each other creature of that same name. So, like, it could become, you know, a pack rat that, or not a pack rat, but, well, no, a pack rat. That kind of just, like, stays around. Cat pack. The cats ate the pack rat, and then they just transformed and evolved. So, yeah, what do you want to say, like F in total? F on him? Or do you want to stay solid on the D-?
I don't think it's a solid F. I don't think it's something that you'll never play under any circumstances. So I think it's solid D- or F+.
D-, F+.
You definitely need the perfect deck, and by the perfect deck I mean you need a lot of cats.
A lot of cats.
And you need proliferate. So maybe it's a dream, maybe it's a meme, but it's not a total F, I think, until like we get to try that. I don't know.
Okay. The Pipe Dream. Alright, so we got Defiant Strike next. Defiant Strike. I put it down as a D. I put it down as a D because I've noticed that mostly in the format it's not too many creatures. And, well, you do get to draw a card, and you can use it on one of your opponent's creatures just after combat or something to be able to draw that extra card. More often than not, for a pump type of spell, you want it to be doing a little bit more. And I think something like Gideon's Sacrifice is definitely going to be picked over it. And I don't think there's a whole lot of utility in just one extra toughness.
Do you think Gideon's Sacrifice is better than Defiant Strike?
Yeah. I think so.
We'll get to Gideon's Sacrifice.
We'll get to that.
It sounds like we're going to have a big difference in grade.
But yeah.
I put Defiant Strike as a C-. I think in most cases it's going to be a D, but I think the red-white deck is kind of trying to be a heroic deck. And there might be some blue-white decks that are just trying to get triggers off of non-creature spells also. So I think it's a little bit better than a D because it's going to be better card in those two decks.
Gotcha. Okay.
Let's move on.
Gideon's
you have something
Gideon's Sacrifice.
Oh, hey, look. It's Alex's new favorite card.
Favorite card. I just think it's better than the Vines.
What did you grade it then, buddy?
C+.
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 You think that like every white deck is gonna play one of these?
At least
that's
one.
Like what a C+ means to me.
At least one. Like it seems to be a Fog plus, but you're able to be a little bit more aggressive with your decks. Like you could play some random Charmed Cat and then go to attack with your team, and then just put everything onto the Charmed Cat. Like, yeah, you get blown out by removal, but like that's what happens all the time with Defiant Strike.
And
like that's what happens with pump spells in general. You just get blown out by removal. But like at least this allows you to be.
It's not a pump spell. It's like a fog that they can counter by removing your creature.
Well, yeah, but it allows you to move a little bit deeper into the different things that you want to be doing with an aggressive deck. And if you want to just like keep like attacking, like this is like something that'll help you out.
All right. Well, I think this card is really bad. It's like it's super situational.
God, here comes
I think
the
it's
F.
no, it's not. I don't think it's an F. Although an F would not be that hot of a take on this card. I think maybe it can. I mean, since it's good in certain situations, pretty narrow situations. I don't know how often those situations are going to come up exactly. So I went a little conservative with a D, but I feel like it's closer to an F. I'm going to change it to D minus.
Now that I said it was a C plus.
C plus.
I don't know. It also helps you enable like some dying effects too, or like have the ability to not necessarily like sacrifice it, but I don't know. I just feel like this card is a little bit better than just how it looks on the face value, and there's a lot of different situations that it's going to be good in.
Well, maybe if I get beat by it, then I'll start giving it some respect.
Gotcha,
but for now, I think that card's really bad. And we can talk about this for a long time, but we won't.
Okay. So then we got Law Rune Enforcer. I think I rated this one pretty high.
Me too.
I got C plus.
I actually rated it even higher than that. I rated it a B minus, and I think this is the best white common.
The best white common.
The white commons again. And
I could take a look through. What about Battle Promote?
I think it's either that or Wanderer's Strike is the best white common. Although the Trusted Pegasus could also be the best.
Which one? Trusted Pegasus?
Yeah. I just think like it's a 1-mana tapper. And sure, it costs mana to tap. It's like I don't know.
Well, it taps everything that you want to tap, right?
Yeah. Well, except for
like planeswalkers,
giant armies. It doesn't tap armies. That's its only real hole. But it's just a really good tapper, and it doesn't even have 1 toughness, so it doesn't like die to stuff that hoses 1 toughness, which I think there's a lot of stuff in this format that does. I think just a very, very solid card. Like I think this card's better than Blinding Mage, and Blinding Mage was very, very good.
Yeah, and I think what helps it out is that it's like a colorless tap effect, tap cost.
It's also like a 1-drop tapper. Like,
yeah.
What is that card? Gideon's Lawbringer or whatever.
Lawbringer, yeah.
Whatever that card is. It's like the same thing. It costs a white to activate. I think this is better than Gideon's.
I think so too.
Unless the mass is like really important, and tapping those army tokens is really that important. I think that this card's just great.
And I think it helps out with some of the other removal spells, like Gideon's Triumph as well, where you kind of limit your opponent on what they can do. And I don't know, having it be 1 mana cost is just also pretty powerful. I put it as a C plus. I don't know if I've said that yet or not, but
yeah,
and then you went B minus.
I went all the way to B minus. I couldn't give it a B because it's not really a bomb or like amazing removal, but I think it's definitely a B minus or a C plus.
Yeah.
It's like this is like one of the white cards that I want to be first picking.
Yeah, that sounds good. Johnny's Pride Mate. I actually put down C plus, but I'm gonna push it down to a C. I think that playing more and more with the new set, there's not too many ways to gain life. Granted, if you are in like a green type of thing, then you'll be able to have a little bit more chances to be able to put +1/+1 counters on it, just to naturally make it better. But if you have a stronger theme in your life gain, I can see it being higher. But I think it's like a solid pick. Definitely not the best uncommon, but
No.
yeah.
I also had it to C+. I think I'm going to stay at C+. Like, once you get the first counter on it, proliferate is so prevalent in this format. Like, it's going to matter a lot, I think. So, like, just getting that first counter on it is not that hard. There's a good number of playable life gain spells. Not all in white. But, like, a lot of colors have a lot of ways to gain life. I think everything but red can gain life at common and uncommon. So, I think it's pretty solid. You probably play in every white deck. That's why I put C+.
Yeah.
That's why I give it a C+.
I think so too, but I think like if you only have 2 life gain cards, then having it just be a vanilla is just almost a waste of a pick. But I mean, like again, like you said, like there's a bunch of cards that do facilitate it, and once you get at least 1 counter on it, then the proliferate can take over. So we're on Battlefield Promotion.
Yeah.
I love this card. I gave it a C+.
A C+. Let's see what
That's pretty good. At first, when I read it, I thought it was just +1/+1 to the creature, but you actually put the counter on.
I think because it's a counter, it's really important. You get a lot for 2 mana. Like, usually 1+1/+1 counter is not enough, but you also get first strike and you gain life, so I think that adds up to more than the sum of its parts, more than the rest of the time. And I think this is the best way to get, one of the best ways to get proliferate flowing on, and that's also a combat trick. And look, it gains life, makes the Pride May a little bit better.
So good! Makes your Pride May get 2 +1/+1 counters and first strike. So good. But yeah, I thought it was definitely on par with Law, Rune, Enforcer, especially with how much proliferate there is. Would you rate it?
On the same level as Law, Rune, Enforcer. I gave it a C.
Let's see. Okay.
I think you'll play it in most of your white decks, but I don't think you'll have to use a very high pick on it or anything like that.
Desperate Lunge. I don't think that's on page. Or was this out of the...
Is that a real card in this set?
Maybe not.
Is that
I wish it was.
Is that one of the dual deck cards?
It might just be.
I can't tell.
Let's move on to Divine Arrow. If it is, it's not...
I'm guessing it is because it's
very
a
good.
common and you have no copies of it after opening at least
This
50
is you.
packs. Oh, this is me?
This is you.
Well, I opened 50 packs, so I'm pretty sure I'd have it if it was a common that could be opened in boosters.
Alright. So yeah, it's worse than Battle Promotion.
It's not on our list here.
Alright, then it's not in there. Divine Arrow. We've seen this kind of card a lot.
Yeah, it's like, it's Gideon's Reproach, except now it's killing Gideon's Pegasus.
Motherfucker.
And look, he's falling off the Pegasus because Oketra shot it. It's so good.
He's like, oh shit.
The flavor is great. And I think the card's pretty great too. Let's see.
I had it as a C-. I think I might just bump it up to a C actually. Because
you're really down on this card.
Well, like
These kind of cards are usually like the bread and butter removal that white has.
Well, they are, but there's like other things that you can be doing, and I don't see a huge trend of like removal in white. White just seems like more like an aggressive, aggro, pumping creature type strategy in this set, and like what? It only has like 2 removal spells, and then like in your multicolors you get like
at common. Okay. I mean, this is their white's common rules up here, and it's always pretty solid.
Yeah, but like usually it's like a Luminous Bonds, and then
I originally gave it a B-. The Luminous Bonds were broken in this set. You could put it on a god, or you could put it on an army, and they always amass on that army, and they're just very sad.
Yeah. But I think the only thing that limits it, and it's something that I've also not liked with Settle the Wreckage, is that your opponent has to attack into it. And like most of the time, people don't play around it, or if they do, then they have some kind of way to like...
You can hit a blocking creature with it. It's not always what you want to be doing, but it's never really dead.
Well, yeah, but it's like, it's conditional removal.
It is conditional.
And like, I would much rather have... a card like Wanderer's Strike in my deck.
So you're on C for it?
Yeah, I think I'm solid C.
I think I'm on C+. I don't think it's as good as the 2 top commons. I think the 2 top commons in white are going to be the Pegasus and the Enforcer. So I don't think it's on the same level as those, but I do think that it's better than the C. I think I put C+. I originally had it at a B-, but then when I realized I had Non-Rune Enforcer at B-, then I bumped it down a little bit. Because I don't think it's on the same tier as Non-Rune Enforcer.
Gotcha.
I don't think it's probably not as good as Trusted Pegasus either. Like, do we think Trusted Pegasus is going to be better than Pegasus Courser? Just because a 2/2 flyer is more solid than a 1/3 body, usually?
I think it could be. It trades with a lot of other flyers in the format. And I mean, like you could say that the 1/3 allows you to attack a little bit more freely, just to lift up some of your ground creatures. But I think the 2/2 just having more damage with the evasion is better overall. That's what I think. So I think it is better than the other Pegasus.
Yeah, I agree.
2/2 better.
But we'll talk about that when we get to it.
Gideon's Triumph. Look at him. With that beard of justice.
Yeah, that's
I gave it a C+. I think this card is one of the better uncommons. I don't know if it's the best, but it's definitely very close. No, it's not the best.
It's not close.
It's not the best.
It's one of the better uncommons, but it's not top.
At minimum, top 5.
4. Let's see.
But yeah, I think a C+ is fine. I don't want to put it into like the B category because it's not. Again, it's like a conditional removal spell, but it does get around like troublesome hexproof creatures, and you can also play it after combat. So after you've like traded creatures and stuff, then you can get them a little bit more focused. But then again, that's like something that you have to do and you have to give up for it. So
yeah, it's gonna be better than Divine Arrow most of the time.
I agree.
But I think I also give Divine Arrow a C+, but I think Gideon's Triumph is definitely a C+, but maybe it's like just a little bit better than Divine Arrow.
Yeah.
We'll have to see how when people like start playing around it, attacking with like their 1/1s, and maybe they don't need to. I think early in the format it's gonna be C+. So.
Gotcha. So we got Grateful Apparition. So it's a 1/1 flyer, deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker. You get to proliferate. I put him as a D+, which is pretty harsh.
That's extremely harsh. I think this is one of the best uncommons in white.
One of the best?
One of the best. Maybe the best.
Alright. I just think that his body is way too weak, and you need to have a lot of enablers to be able to make him effective. And I don't know, some of the decks that we were playing with today, like even when we had Proliferate, it still didn't do anything. And I mean, that might be a little bit different because you can focus your deck around +1/+1 counters, but I feel like it's the
I think
the blue one
the
from
green-white deck is
Phyrexia.
all about Proliferate. But I think there's enough stuff to Proliferate in general, especially, I mean, less so probably in Sealed, which is what we've been playing. And I think in Draft it's gonna be something that you want to build around.
I could put it as like a CC- for Draft, but it's just I just don't think it's going to be as consistently good as you want it to be.
I'm gonna say build around B minus. I think in the right deck it's a B minus.
B minus, whoa.
Yeah. I think this is one of the linchpins to the proliferate deck.
So it's kind of like the Night Veil creature whenever it attacks it surveils from Allegiance.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. Okay, I guess I can see that. It's like
I've also seen games where like, not on our stream, but on other streams where it looked really good, where someone just went like, they put 2 counters on it and made it unblockable, whatever that card is, in blue. And then they just started
Assassin's Plans or something.
They just started beating. And
Well,
it just
yeah,
got bigger
you can
every
do
single
that.
turn. It was pretty sick. Killed him real fast. Like once you get a counter on this thing, it becomes really, really good.
A bit more threatening. Being a 2-drop does help though. I don't know. Somewhere between B minus and D.
Stealth mission. That's the card.
Stealth mission. Alright. Martyr for cause. When he dies, he gets to proliferate. I have this guy that is a C minus.
C minus.
Yeah, I think he's a little bit better. You can still pump him or do whatever you need to with him, even though he is on the ground. But at least when he dies, he's providing your +1/+1 counter deck with some kind of benefit from it. And it's kind of like some of the creatures that when they die, they put a +1/+1 on another creature. But at least this guy can like pump up your planeswalkers as well. So I feel like this card is a little bit better because you can plan around it, and you don't necessarily need to trade him off or have him die as soon as you might have other creatures. And then even if your opponent kills it, you get some kind of benefit from it, or you should, anyway. What'd you put it as?
I gave that card a C. I
C.
gave it a little bit. I was thinking C minus, but then thought about it, and I think this format has doesn't have a lot of good 2-drops, and I think this is the kind of common 2-drop that you want in your proliferate decks.
Most definitely. I guess I could put it up to a C. That would be fine. But just as like a 2-drop in white. But I don't know. I kind of put that spot with Johnny's Primate, but since he's uncommon and Martyr's common, I can see that. Yeah. Pouncing Lynx. During your turn, he gets first strike, and he's a 2/1. We saw this in the last set with the red-white hybrid knight or soldier.
That was Guilds of Ravnica.
Guilds of Ravnica? Oh, sorry, Guilds of Ravnica. What did you give him as a grade?
I gave the Graceful Lynx a C minus.
C minus.
I think having 1 toughness in this format kind of sucks. Having first strike is kind of good, but like I couldn't give him much better grade than that. I think he's gonna be like a filler 2-drop, and like maybe you could put a counter on him and start proliferating him when he starts being good. But because there's no mentor in this set, which is what really made that recruit like a good card in Guilds of Ravnica, I think it's gonna be less than averagely good. So C minus.
Alright. Ender Squid, thanks for the host. Appreciate it, man. Much love. For me, I gave it a C plus or a B. I put it that way because like we've been saying, there's not too many 2-drops in this set for creature-wise that you can reliably have in your white deck.
You said C plus?
Yeah, C plus.
Or a B?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. So for this, or
You
B
think
minus.
that's a better 2-drop than Pride Mate or Martyr?
I think that it definitely can be. Just stand alone by itself. It doesn't really need a whole lot of help for it to be able to kind of take over the game. First strike is just something that I don't see a lot in this set, so it can kind of help you out as you're playing through. And I think while the Johnny's Primate has a better end game to it, a way better end game, I think Pouncing Linux needs less help to make it good. So if you put 1 or 2 counters on it, then it just like starts to become pretty insane. Whereas like a Johnny Primate, if you put it like 1 or 2, then it's just like, you know, okay, fine, like we need to get it bigger. So I think what makes it the best is that it does have the first strike, but you need to put it in aggressive deck for it to even be close to a B-. Otherwise, you're probably like CC+. But I just put it as a C+ as more of like a mid-range because it is, I think, one of the more solid 2-drops here for white.
Wow, I'm really surprised that you think it's better than the other 2-drops that we've already talked about.
I mean, I would probably pick a Primate because he does have a better potential, but like I'm more of like a mid-range player at heart, so I'm going to play to my play style.
That's not a mid-range card, that's like an aggro card.
What, Johnny's Primate?
No, the Pouncer things.
Yeah, exactly. That's why like I would pick differently, but I'm saying if you're going to build an aggressive deck, like this is the card that you want as your 2-drop. Like you can make arguments for like a bunch of other stuff, but if you play this as your 2, your opponent's X2 just dies to it, so you can just keep attacking. You can stay aggressive with this card.
I don't think there's that many X2s. I think there's more X3s.
More
That's why
X3s?
I'm a little bit down on this card. Plus, I'm down on 2-1s in general. 2-1s for 2, usually not that good. But like, once this guy gets a counter on him, like if you put Battlefield Promotion on him, he gets pretty good, I guess. But I can't give more than a C for that, or more than a C- for that.
That's fine. I can understand that. Yeah. I just feel like if you're gonna have like the aggressive deck, then I don't know.
So you're like rating it like white's always gonna be an aggressive deck, which I'm not sure it is.
For white not being aggressive,
Yeah.
it does have cards against that notion.
I think it might. In most cases, it's going to be, but I don't think every white deck's going to be aggressive. Like the blue-white deck, probably not going to be that aggressive on the ground.
Yeah, so if you are playing an aggressive deck, then that card's going to be, I think, more of like a B. But I can stay in the C category. I think that's fine. It's just I don't know what other card I'd want. I mean, like we probably have to discuss some like stuff in like red and green before I can say that, I guess. But as far as white goes, as an aggressive card, that card's one of the top.
All right, we're gonna agree to disagree on that one. We need to move forward here.
Rally the Wings, 2 mana instant. Untap all your creatures you control. Creatures with a flying get +2/+2 until end of turn. What'd you think?
I gave this card a D.
Whoa.
I think it's incredibly situational. If you have a deck with a lot of flyers, I think it could be good, and you put it in your deck. But I think in any other case, this card should never touch your 4D.
Gotcha. I had a C- on it here, and you say D. I should probably move it back down. But I think like the only thing that you're going to be using this for is like a combat trick, just to be able to untap all your guys and be able to defend. Outside of that, it's really questionable how much you're gonna be able to use it. Yeah, D seems fine. I could move down to a D on that.
Okay. D for Rally of Wings.
All right, we got Tomek.
We have a funny story about this card on stream today. So I think usually you can just ignore all the other abilities besides flying on this guy, and he's pretty solid. We had a little bit of a situation on stream today where what is it called? Something casualties. Our rare that destroys one permanent of each type could not destroy a land because this guy was on the battlefield. We paid 6 mana to kill Tomek.
Casualties of War.
Yeah, Casualties of War. We cast Casualties of War just to kill Tomek in that particular sealed game.
6 mana, kill your 2
I don't
drop.
think that's how good he's usually going to be, but a 2/3 flyer for 2 mana is always going to be very solid.
Yeah.
And other abilities won't come up in any other case besides Casualty of War.
Almost never. I guess like the only time that it would come up is if you can also get the other rare for your man land. But outside of that, like
protect their land, man.
Yeah, just protect it. Like, I don't know.
Maybe. I think
if your opponent is playing 4 demolishes, put this guy in.
I think he's just solid C plus.
Yeah, C plus. I think he's a good creature, flying, all the good stuff. I think I might put him down to a C just because of his restrictive mana cost, but C plus seems fine for right now.
You don't have to cast him on turn 2 for him to be good. Those stats are just really good for 2 mana.
2/3 flyers, yeah. He blocks the Pegasus too.
Yeah, he does.
Trust the Pegasus. War Screecher! Caca! That's the noise he makes.
Sure it does. Yep.
Flyer, 6 mana tap. Other creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn.
I feel like that card threatens to activate more often than it actually activates. And threat activation is not a bad thing at all. Your opponent has to respect that when it's on the board. And I think this card has been solid enough when I've seen it on the board, and I think it's going to be a C. I probably would rate it as C-, but I think it's important to have creatures with higher toughness that can block and protect your planeswalkers, and this one has flying too, so it protects your planeswalkers pretty well.
Gotcha. Yeah, I put it as a C- just because of I feel like either you're going to put it into your decks just to be able to get a little bit farther into the game. But like he was saying, like the threat of the pump is going to be the most important part about this card. The aggressive decks could add it just as like a 2-drop flyer, but honestly, I think you can do a little bit better in your as like a common, and I think if you had a choice, you definitely want to pick like Pegasus or something else for like an aggressive deck. But for like a mid-range, you're fine. The toughness does push him up, so I could reevaluate it for a little bit higher, but I've just put it as a C-.
We're close enough there. We can move on.
Gideon Black Blade.
Is this our first mythic? There we
Yeah,
go.
first mythic.
All right, so
I wish I had music.
mythic music.
Mythic. All right, so Black Blade. During your turn, he is a 4/4 soldier human creature. Set it backwards. What's up? With indestructible, he's also a planeswalker. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to him during this turn. His +1, one other creature, up to one other creature. You control gains vigilance, lifelink, indestructible. One of those until end of turn. His -6 is exile target non-land permanent. I gave him a B-. I think this guy is.
Wow, B-.
Is that too high?
No, I think that's too low.
Too
I
low?
gave Gideon an A.
An A.
I think if you're playing this guy on turn 3, your opponent's in big trouble.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay,
there's not really anything that tangles with him early in the game, and he does kind of protect himself. And unlike other Gideons, is sometimes like these kind of Gideons, like exiling a non-land permanent is really good, and like he only has other plus abilities, so you're just gonna build up, and he's just gonna beat your opponent down, and he's gonna give one of your creatures the ability to protect him, and they're just gonna like die. And then eventually he'll exile something, probably. I don't know, maybe he's more like an A-, but he's definitely like an A if you're playing him on turn 3. So if you have like a deck with like 9 to 11 white sources or something, and you're consistently playing him on turn 3, I think he's going to be a giant beating for your opponent, and they're not going to be happy to see him.
Like, oh shit. Yeah, so I put him as B-. He I think if he had a bit of a different +1 ability, then I could put him closer to an A. I could maybe bump him up to a B, considering now, like, if you're able to consistently play him on turn 3, but I think it's not a card that's going to catch you back up, especially since it's not going to be a creature during your opponent's turn. It does avoid some of, like, the other
Kind of
sorcery
catch you
speed
back up,
removal.
like, if you have another creature that you're giving... lifelink to, it kind of does catch you up.
It can, but like if you're trying to catch up, then that means that your board state can't be that great, right?
All right. You're right.
Like you could give it indestructible.
He doesn't really catch you up, so I guess he doesn't really deserve a flat A. So I'm gonna give him an A minus. I'm going down to A minus on him.
But I do want to push him up because he is such a resilient, hard to deal with threat on turn 3. But it just feels like during the later turns he gets a little bit worse, and you have to have some kind of command over the board for you to continuously gain that advantage and continue to take it over. But if you're in an aggressive deck, it's definitely an A.
I mean,
it's like almost an A plus if you're an aggressive
deck. You definitely take it. You put a lot of white sources in your deck, and you try and kill people with it.
This is the deck that Tomic goes into. Your mono white.
Mono white devotion standard.
Yeah, right. But yeah,
we're talking about limited here, Alex. Let me remind you.
Hey, you can do devotion in limited.
Ooh.
Okay.
You can't do devotion in standard either. Like, there's no payoff.
Yeah, like even in like some of the constructed decks, you might not see too many of them.
All right, moving on.
Makeshift battalion. Whenever he or she, and at least 2 other creatures attack, put a +1/+1 counter on battalion, and it's a 3/2 for 3.
Yep, it has battalion. It's counter on
battalion.
Itself.
That's the joke.
Because it puts a counter on itself, I gave this a C. I'm willing to go all. I went all the way up to a C because it puts a counter on itself. Like, not that easy, but like I feel like the first counter is super valuable when what you're trying to do is proliferate.
I can see that. Yeah, I gave it a D plus. I didn't think that it was going to be like one of your first choices or one of your top choices for your 3-drops, but it definitely is following the same theme of like a swarm deck or like an aggressive deck type strategy, and being able to put a +1/+1 counter on your own creature as well to help facilitate the proliferate effects is definitely really good, which is why I almost bumped it up into the C category. But I feel like this is one of the lesser powerful commons for white, so not to say that it's like the worst, but I think that there's a lot of other things that you'd want to be picking over this card, and yeah, I couldn't quite finish in a C range.
What'd you give it? A D?
D plus.
D plus.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit more down on this card than I thought. Maybe because there's so many good 3-drops that gets bumped down. I could C minus. I don't think every white deck's gonna want this, so I'll go C minus on it. I'll get a little bit closer to you.
The 3 power does help. I mean, like it's definitely a good card to fight off against like other 2 and 3 drops that your opponent's doing, but yeah. Prison Realm. We got Prison Realm. I put it as a B plus. What? I think it's one of the more premium removals in the format. It's not too heavy on the mana costs. It's still pretty cheap. It gives you a scry. It does almost everything that you want it to do. And like, granted, you don't have the Oblivion Ring effect where it can hit artifacts, enchantments, or whatever. But it hits all the important things that are in this format, I think. And I think it's one of the better solid removal spells for white.
I also think that this card is great. I think it's probably the best uncommon in white.
I think so too. I think it's the best, if not like
definitely
second.
The best uncommon in white, in my opinion. And usually I'd give this kind of Oblivion Ring type effect a B, but because it also scries 1, which is great upside, B plus it is.
Yeah, let's just give it scry.
I almost went A minus, and that was the first thing that I wrote. But if we're giving stuff like Gideon an A minus, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's kind of the cool thing about having 2 people do this.
Like, there's definitely some cards that I think you could first pick over this, but I think they're all rares. Or mythics.
I think you take this over some rares. Like, honestly. I'd
Yeah,
definitely take it over
rares.
Karn. Fuck Karn. Jesus.
I think you take it over a lot of rares, but not like the best rares.
I'd take it over Finale of Revelation.
Would you take over Gideon?
Over Gideon?
Because that's my line right now. 'Cause I have Gideon A-. And I don't think this is also an A-.
If it's pack 1,
yeah, pack 1, pick 1.
I'd probably take Gideon. If it's pack 3, depending on how far I am into white, I might just choose
That's true, because this
Prism.
card is splashable.
Yeah.
Maybe they can be...
That's a tough choice.
Maybe they can both be A-. I don't know. No,
That's a
I'm
conundrum.
gonna stay B plus on Prison Realm, but it's great.
B plus is a solid
Always
answer for that one, I
just
think.
take it and play it. It'll be great.
Take it and play it. Alright, we got the Rising Populace with the anorexic girl with the flowers on top of her. I don't know. It just looks like a mark, like she's like needing some food.
Well, she's probably dead now, so...
Whenever another creature or planeswalker you control dies, put a +1/+1 counter on a Rising Populace. I don't think the planeswalker effect will come into effect as much as we think, but it's definitely a solid card. What'd you put it at?
I gave this card a C because it starts off as a gray ogre, but maybe it's C plus. But there's so many good 3-drops.
Yeah, I put it as a C plus.
I think I'm gonna stay at C because it starts off kind of anemic, but like once the first thing dies, it becomes a 3/3. Then it's like a real threat, and then you can kind of snowball it a little bit from there.
I think that this is just going to either die really quickly or it's going to take over your opponent and they're not going to know it. I think the deck that it wants to be in is like more of like a white-black strategy because black does have a lot of sacrifice outlets. And I think if you can facilitate that, that's what's going to make it the C+. And I think in that kind of deck, that kind of strategy, it's going to be one of your better 3-drops. But again, it needs to fit within the deck style. If not, I mean, it's like a decent enough creature on its own. But in like any other normal deck, I'd probably rate it like C, C-. But
I think we're pretty close. I think it's better than the makeshift battalion for what it's worth. I think it's easier to get the first counter.
I think it is. It's way better. Yeah.
Yeah.
What did we do for makeshift?
I gave makeshift.
Did I
also
give it
a
D?
C, but
Oh, I gave it D-.
no, I went
or
down
D+.
to C-. Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. All right, I think we talked enough about this guy.
Teo the Shield Mage. You have hexproof, and then you can make a 0/3 wall with Defender.
I don't think having hexproof does like anything in this set.
Nothing.
I mean, it stops them from it stops them from lava axing you, I guess.
Oh,
it doesn't
man.
stop them from edicting you because Liliana's triumph is just each opponent that gets her own hexproof.
Yeah, I don't think it helps you all that much at all.
I mean, it kind of helps you. It gives you something to sacrifice to the triumph.
Yeah, it could give
It's
you
like,
something.
Here's a 0/3 I can sacrifice.
I think if you play this with Holly, it's pretty good. You get a 3/3 wall.
Alright, do you think it's playable other than
Oh yeah, what did I give it?
I don't think it's
gave
one
it
of the
like a
better
D.
planeswalkers. I think it's playable though.
I put it as a D.
A D.
A D.
Wow.
I think it's a D because you're almost never gonna want to put it in your deck. 1x
it's
up.
good.
Thanks for the host.
I think it's good in a defensive deck, or it helps you protect your other planeswalkers. So that's why I gave him a C-. But I definitely don't think you definitely don't want Teo in your aggressive decks.
Yeah.
Don't put Teo in your aggressive decks, folks.
Oh man, that's so
Just
bad.
because he's a planeswalker doesn't mean you put him in every deck. He's kind of narrow.
I think if you're building like more of a controlling strategy, then you should put him in. But other than that, don't. No, he's not that great.
His light shield, though.
Oh, light shield!
Teo's light shield, though.
When it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on a target creature you control. The thing to note about this guy is that it's a 0/3 without Defender.
Does not have Defender. You can play it as 1/4 and just start proliferating it and beat your opponent down.
The light shield, it's too bright.
Although I don't think that the aggressive white proliferate deck is going to be so hard up that it needs a 3-drop 0/3 to get going.
No, I think it's probably one of the weaker cards. Again, it's going to be in your control deck if you want. If you have some cards that are able to flicker it, take it off the battlefield, put it back on, or you're able to like abuse it. If you have something to bounce it, then it might be a little bit better. But I just gave it a D+. I don't think it's a card that... I think it's probably going to be like your 26th, 27th, 28th card, if that. Like it's
but that means you'll never play.
Yeah. Like only if your cards are very, very like minimal, then you can like start putting it in. But if you have a lot of proliferate effects and you desperately need that +1/+1 counter, it gets a little bit better. But I don't know. I just think overall it's just not that great of a pick.
I think it's a not great card. You're not gonna play it in most decks. You give it a D+.
Yeah.
I think I was on C-, but I think D+ is. Cause like the more we talk about these white commons, the more I think that white's gonna be an aggressive color.
Yeah, it's just.
I still think that blue-white's gonna be kind of like, gonna kind of want that card.
Well, yeah. So like, if you're a control deck, then like the Teo combo would be fine. I just think overall, on average, in your white X strategy, you don't want that card. I think there's better options that you could have available to you. But yeah, so let's go to Topple the Statue. I gave this a straight up D-.
I gave it a sideboard grade. So I don't think you should ever put it in your main deck. And I think it's a sideboard C.
I think
although
it's...
I don't... After looking at all the artifacts... The artifacts are all so bad. Maybe it's just a F. Like, I'm trying to think of a time where you'd want to sideboard this in.
So, like, the tapping a creature is, like, okay. And you get to draw a card, okay.
Yeah.
Like, you could probably put it in your control deck if you want. Just on the off chance that your opponent's playing, like, Godfair Statue, or they're playing, like, a Bully, or for whatever reason they put in Silverwing. But, like...
I'm changing my grade to F, I don't think.
F?
I looked at all the artifacts again. I don't
That was quick.
I gave most of the... Spoiler alert, I gave most of the artifacts a bad grade. So, I don't think you're ever going to want to board this in against artifacts. And that's the only situation I could see it ever being playable in.
I think it gets a little bit better, like he's saying, as like a sideboard card. If you're a control deck against an aggressive deck, it gives you like kind of some life back, and you get to draw a card, dig through your deck a little bit further. But I'd be a lot happier if it was 2 mana. 3 mana, it's kind of like a waste of a turn, and like the artifact clause is just pretty much non-existent in this format. So,
like we've seen this card before. What? Actually, I didn't realize you could tap lands. You tap a land on their upkeep.
Not if they have Tomic out.
That's not the worst. Not if they have Tomic out. That's right.
I am well aware of Tomic's abilities now.
I'm not going to bump it down for Tomic being in the format out of there.
Oh my god.
But,
yeah, I don't know. It's bad. It's low. We got Trusted Pegasus now. Look at him. He doesn't even know his Pegasus is going to die horribly.
Whoa, spoiler alert, Alex.
Ah, sorry. Spoiler.
It's like, oh wait, we already talked about how Pegasus dies.
So it's flying. When it attacks another target attacking creature gets flying until the end of turn. For a 2/2, we talked about it a little bit earlier. I put it as a solid C.
I give it C+.
C+. I could see a C+.
I think it should be a C+. We keep talking about it as like one of the top 2 white commons.
Do you want me to just make you feel better? C+.
All right, C+ for Trusted Pegasus.
He is trustworthy.
Okay,
Trust him.
Moving on. Nope.
We got Ironclad Crovat.
Oh boy, this card.
The zombies are like, oh shit, let's get the fuck out of here.
Alright, initially, this card, I'll start talking about it. Initially, this card I gave a D-, but the more that I think about it, I think the more this, at least, I don't know about how draft's gonna go. I know it's gonna be really bad. I think you might never want to put it in your deck because so many of the uncommon planeswalkers cost 4, and that's going to be a highly contested slot on your curve. And I think there's just so many better things you could be doing for 4 mana that this card should never really touch your deck. It's like a solid 26th card, which is my way of saying don't play this card.
Don't play it. I put it as just
don't
a straight...
play it in your 14 land decks either.
Oh, damn it. I was going to try it out, but glad you told me. I put it as a solid D. The only reason that I'm kind of bumping it up a little bit is that it could be the control player's best friend. And like with cards, like we were talking about in the control shells, like these, it can definitely help out the card to either survive or get a little bit bigger, pump it up. Like a +1/+1 counter on it is like starting to become no joke. But I think overall, you definitely don't want to rate it very high, and you don't want to pick it high either. I think 26, you said, card? Yeah. I think that's a pretty good spot. That's right.
26 is... I thought that was our joke for never play this card.
Exactly. But if you're against like an aggressive deck, and there's like a bunch of X2s or X1s, like some of the aggressive natures that they have, and you're playing your like blue-white X control deck, I think it's going to be a little bit better. So maybe like your 23rd pick, but I'm leaving it as a D. I don't think it's going to get any better.
I think it could be correct to put in your deck. Sometimes maybe, but more often it's going to be correct to leave it in your sideboard, which is why I went F.
So ambiguous. It's like, oh, it could be good in that 1% scenario, but
that's why I'm going F instead of D-, which is really not that big of a difference.
I should have put it as an F, but there is some value in some of the control decks, I think.
Okay, moving on.
Loxodon Sargento. 4 mana vigilance. When he enters the battlefield, other creatures you control get vigilance until end of turn, and he's a 3/3. I put this guy as a D-. He should be a D+. I think the vigilance clause could be beneficial sometimes, especially if you're in like a racing nature, because like as you play in some of the limited formats, you'll gain an understanding that vigilance is actually a pretty nice ability to have. It's definitely not the best. It's definitely not something that's going to be like over the top, but to be able to have your creatures attack and block at the same time is definitely a game changer. And I think giving the ability for 1 turn is like mediocre, but I think it's good enough to warrant a D+, not just a D or D-.
I don't agree. I gave this card a D.
D? He gets the D!
I think that this stat line, and like I said, I'm kind of downgrading every 4-drop because I think that's where you want your planeswalkers to be.
I agree.
I don't think this card does what white wants to be doing, and I think it's in a highly contested slot, so I don't think this card's going to make the main deck.
Yeah.
I can see it being sideboarded in sometimes, but like, just giving your creatures vigilance is not that helpful. If you didn't have attacks before, you still don't have attacks. It's not like Angel of the Dawn that gives +1/+1 in vigilance. That card's great, and it is flying.
And flying.
That card's great. When you take away flying and +1/+1, it gets bad.
It turns into an elephant.
Yeah, I don't know. Probably shouldn't play this card, Chad.
No, don't do it. So we got Ravnica at War. I don't think I rated this one very high. Spoiler alert.
I didn't give this card a real grade. I gave it a sideboard grade because I don't.
Oh, I put it as.
I don't think you should be main decking this card. I don't think there's enough gold cards. There aren't that many gold cards. This isn't a guild set, so this is definitely a constructed plant, and I don't think it should be in your limited main decks.
I can understand that. Yeah,
But I think sideboard it could go up to like a B minus if your opponent has a lot of good gold cards. There aren't that many. Most of the planeswalkers are gold, at least most of the uncommon ones because they're hybrid. But otherwise, this card is kind of bad.
Whoa! Double host, Casper Sky, and Asian guy. Oh, that was kind of clever.
Thanks, Casper Sky, an Asian guy.
Thanks for rhyming too. That made saying your names a lot easier. We're just going over the set review today for Magic the Gathering War of the Sparks. Stay tuned, and you get to know how good or how bad these cards are. For Ravnica at War, I put it a D. I don't think it's a card that you definitely want to be picking. Is
it a card that you would put in your main deck?
Hell no. I don't think it's good enough unless you're playing like a mono or maybe 2-color deck. It's definitely a sideboard card, and yeah, I don't think we need to talk about it. It's pretty bad.
Okay. What'd you even do if it's a sideboard card? You didn't know about sideboard grades?
I think sideboards are essentially part of your entire deck. Like if you're drafting it, then you unless you pick it as like your 10th pick or something, then it's not going to be anything worthwhile. But I think that it has enough value against certain troublesome cards that you may face against, and that it does have some utility. So like it may only kill a bunch of the planeswalkers in the set, but I don't know if it's close enough to exile all planeswalkers, then, or like a planeswalker, I think it's good enough. But like your deck definitely needs to be put in a position to be able to use this to its maximum level. And if you're putting it in your sideboard just for whatever,
would you also want to have it in a deck where it doesn't exile any of your stuff?
That's the point that I'm making. So I think there's like 40 or 50 gold cards in the set, which isn't that much. It's like a fifth. So like you do have tons of targets. It's a 10 per section.
10, 20, 30.
So like it does have some value, but I don't think it's 50. Main deckable.
I see 54, but not
54.
Not all of them are permanents, and the permanents that they make sometimes are just zombies.
Yeah, so it's
wouldn't get exiled.
Conditional at best, I think.
Speaking of conditional, we have the Wanderer.
I'm gonna change this a little bit.
So we were playing it in Seal today, and I don't think it's fair to say this card does nothing, but so far
it done nothing.
It hasn't done anything for us.
I think that when you need it to do something, it's definitely going to be there, and if you're playing against like a red X deck, it's going to be really good.
It also stops stuff like Sorin's Thirst.
Yeah, Sorin's Thirst, it blocks
stops
the
damage-based removal, which is good.
The white one that we had very big confrontation on, Divine Arrow.
That's true, it stops that too.
It could also be used in combo with Gideon's Sacrifice just to save her. But
you can also proliferate their creatures and then kill them, but I don't know. In Sealed, we'll have to see how it shakes out in draft, but for now, I think she could. I'm willing to put her in my deck.
I put her as a C minus. I think she's definitely main deckable, but it's probably going to be maybe your last 7 or 8 picks, so like 15 up. But even like at 15, that's pretty stretching it. I just think that she has some versatility within her, and to exile problematic creatures that your deck might just not be able to deal with, as like some decent removal that can be continuously used over and over again, especially with Proliferate, is a solid pick.
I mean, if you get to exile 2 creatures with her, it's great. But like the question is like, how often are you going to get to do that? And so far, that hasn't been very often for us.
It's been 0.
But the only times that we draw her is like after we kill all our opponent's 4-powered creatures. So like maybe she could be good. I kind of agree with C minus. I had her at like B minus. She's more like sideboard B material. Like I think she could definitely go up to like a B, maybe even a B plus in the right matchup. But
oh yeah, if you're playing like proliferate.deck, then yeah, put her in. Shit, she's gonna be great.
Proliferate their 3-drop and then exile it.
Bond of Discipline. You're gonna bond the disciplines together. So you might be angry at me.
Oh, that probably means you rated this card high.
I gave it a B.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's.
Let me explain.
I think this card is. Alright, let me preface this. I think a lot of people are going to disagree about this card. This is probably going to be one of the most controversial cards in the set. Cards like this and Sleep usually are. This card is a lot like Sleep, except I think it's less good in a race.
In a race?
Yeah.
But you gain lifelink.
You do
I
gain
think this
lifelink,
card is.
but you only tap their creatures for one turn. You only get in there once.
You only
So
need
if you didn't
one
have
turn.
good attacks and you don't have lethal, this card's not really doing that much for you.
So, like, if you don't have lethal, but you're maybe, like, 2 turns away, you tap their creatures, swing in, and you gain that life back, which means that your opponent now can't attack you back. They have to be up for defense, because, like, they're probably not going to be able to kill you on the swing back. Like, I think this card in...
I think this is way too situational to be a B. Like, it's
Way
good.
too situational?
It's good in a race. I don't think it's good in every situation. And I don't think it's good as premium removal, which is what B's
It's
should
not
be.
removal, it's tempo. It's... I think that the potential for this is huge.
I think B is too high. Mostly because I don't think... You can't rate something a B that not every white deck is going to play at least one of. And I don't think every white deck wants this. I think only maybe aggressive decks want it, and I'm not really even sure if
I think
all of
mid-range...
them will want it.
Mid-range could use it. I guess not every white deck wants it. There might be some decks that want more permanent based.
Alright, do you want to know why I rated this card? I rated this card a D.
Oh, well, then there we go.
And I think that's because you're not going to want it in every white deck, and I think most white decks maybe won't want it, but I don't think the aggro is really going to be a huge thing. I think the white decks are way more mid-rangey and proliferate-y. Maybe the red-white deck, but I'm not convinced that that's like a real deck, because it's trying to be heroic without any protection. Like, you can kind of heroic your creatures, but there's nothing like God's Willing to like protect them or anything, so I think it might be... That deck just might be a trap.
Alright, well, yeah, I guess if you can see... I guess if you focus on the potential of the card, then take it as a B. But if you see it as a card that most white decks would want, go with a D.
Okay. Well, we can be divisive on
I
this
guess.
one.
I don't know. Like, I could bring it down to
We'll
like a
have to
C
see
plus
how
maybe,
the-
but I think
one
this card is just really good for like mid-range and aggro decks. Because like if you're just proliferating all the time, getting your creatures up, and you get like a board stall, I mean it's like all creatures get +2/+2 or +2/+1. Like it's a different kind of way to bring that about. Like your creatures don't just beat all their creatures, but you get to attack your opponent for free, or their planeswalkers for free, and then you gain all the life back that you're attacking with. I don't know. It's like you said, it's a confrontational card, and like depending on your point of view or your playstyle, you're gonna rate it differently. What's that? Enforcer Griffin, 3/4 flyer, vanilla for 5. I put it as a C, but I want to actually put it down to a C minus. Now that we're actually like getting in deep with some of these cards.
I think C minus is right where this card should be. Like these cards, these like French vanilla 3/4s for 5 with flying are it's like vanilla,
Sorry.
but it's got a little bit of flavor, like flying.
It's got a little flavor.
That's like a real term that people use.
It's got those little black dots in it.
So just the 3/4 flying is always more solid than you think it is usually, and they're usually about Ds. They're like begrudgingly playable. Like when we saw this card in Kaladesh, it was probably a D, but it made it into people's decks like more than most people thought it would. And I think because this card has flying, it's going to be really important in this format, where I think flying and other forms of evasion are really important because you need to kill the rare and the mythic planeswalkers.
Yeah, most definitely. The flying definitely pushes it up from like the D category. The 3/4 is not very good for the 5, but yeah, I think the C- is a solid
Okay, so
rating
we're in
for it.
agreement.
God Eternal Ketra!
God,
This card's bonkers.
this card is bonkers. We played against this card a couple of times today. I think the only reason I was able to beat it is because they never played a creature after they played her.
Yeah.
If they did, it would have made things a lot more difficult, and I would have had to burn them out. But oh my god,
I give it an A+. I think if you see this in your pack 3, you're gonna try to splash for it somehow. At least I would. Like this card just seems to get too much value from just like anything that you can play. So if you're playing like a creature-based strategy, you're just gonna start getting 4/4 vigilance zombie tokens. So like, I don't know. There's a lot of things that affect zombie tokens.
The fact that those zombie tokens have vigilance is just so oppressive.
It's so
You can turn
mean.
around a game so fast. If you're like a little bit behind and you play a catcher and you untap with her and you just play like 2 creatures, you're just like never gonna
Oh, I
lose.
won. Cool.
We're like, okay, I win.
Good game.
That's why I think a catcher is either an A+ or an A. I think she's closer to an A+ because she can bring you back from behind. If you can play her and you can untap with her, you can win.
Yeah, or if you just like hold out a little bit and play like her in a 2-drop or her in a 1-drop, like you just immediately gain this board state that's just so hard to work around. And yeah, I just think that this card is like a huge bomb. I think it's one of the best cards in the
So
in the
bonkers.
format.
It doesn't even ask you to play your deck any differently. You just like you just want to play creatures, and you just have to cast the creatures. So hey, resolve. Just here's my 4/4 vigilance token, and if you have any of those things that enhance zombie tokens, they could get flying. They could get menace, hexproof, death touch, or trample. Like there's cards that do that for all zombie tokens, which is just not okay.
Not so. But yeah, and then she has double strike on top of that, and then the God Claws. It's just like,
Yeah.
it's like Christmas.
You
Game
should
over.
take this card and find a way to put it in your deck.
Very much so. Ignite the Beacon. Excuse me. It's a 5-mana tutor for 2 planeswalkers. You get to find them out of your deck, put them into your hand, and then shuffle your library after.
I give this card a D.
I gave it a D+. D+ only because, again, for like your control strategies, it gets you the cards that you want. And it's going to be really tough to be able to play a 5-mana card. Making it an instant does help. It's, its situation, but it's just like so hard to make it
most
work.
decks aren't gonna want this in draft. Like you're not gonna have that many planeswalkers. I think you want to have like 3 to 4 planeswalkers, and 2 of them have to be really good to put this card in your deck.
Yeah, like you should probably have like a Liliana or something, able to just take huge advantage after you cast it, and
Yeah, you need the kind of planeswalkers
There's
that
not a
can
lot
bring
of
you back
upside.
from behind, like Liliana.
yeah,
That kind of stuff. And the fact, I mean,
you could make a good evaluation of
black,
it
white.
on like maybe pack 2, definitely pack 3. You could make a good evaluation of how good it's going to be, but if you see this pack 1, you just pass it. Single combat. I think this card is awesome.
Do you?
I'm a mid-range control player, so I think it's awesome. I gave it a B-. I think it's one of the premium mass removal spells of the format. I think it might actually be the best just on its own.
I think it's pretty good if you're the one who has the best creature or planeswalker on the board, but I've seen this card played, and I've thought about like what happens if my opponent has it, and I just don't like it. Like my opponent played it against me today, they left me with a creature and then with a planeswalker, and I just attacked the planeswalker, and we just passed our turns. That's all that happened. Because I killed their planeswalker.
So I think why I'm rating this so high is that usually with certain planeswalkers you'll be able to, at least like the better ones, you'll be able to destroy them and destroy your other creature or planeswalker that your opponent has. But just removing everything else and then telling your opponent that they can't cast any creature or planeswalker spells helps you catch up so much. And like, I think if you're playing a control deck, or if you see this pack 1, you're going to be the control deck. This card facilitates it so well, and it also doesn't hurt if you have like a Dovin on the battlefield. So now you get to play Dovin, and you get to know that your opponent's not going to play anything for the next couple turns. So then you as a control deck can then bring yourself back up.
Then you have to put Dovin into your deck.
I think Dovin's fine.
I don't think so. We'll get to Dovin
We'll get
later.
to Dovin.
I think you're rating this card like if you're already in this deck, and I don't think that most white decks are going to want it. That's why I gave it a D.
I think some do. Like if you, I mean, granted, it doesn't really have like a very good synergy with God Eternal Ketra, but like outside of the fact that you are able to have her just on the field with whatever your opponent has. You don't get to activate her second ability, which makes her so great. But like if you have certain creatures that, or creatures or planeswalkers that you have that you know can beat your opponent, like the Wanderer, and then your opponent just has like the 4-attack creature, or we're never picking Teo, but I just think that it's one of the better standalone mass removal in the format, and it's definitely not conditional. And
I think it's very conditional.
I
think it's conditional on you having the best permanent on the battlefield.
But you don't necessarily need to do that. Like, it gives you an extra turn or two to figure out what you need to do to be able to beat your opponent when they can't cast any creature or planes. They can't progress the board. And you can stall out so well. This is a card that tells you can come back into the game. Like, if your opponent has 10 creatures and you have 1, bam, you're back to even. You're back to... This is like balance for me. I don't know. I rate it pretty high. I said B-. I think that it's great.
This card doesn't do anything when you're ahead.
It doesn't do anything
really
ahead.
Do anything at parity. It only does something when you're behind, and I don't think you can give a B to anything like that. Like you're not going to put these in your white. You're not going to put this card in your white aggro deck. You're not going to put this in. Probably not going to put this card in your white mid-range deck. Maybe you're.
I mean, if you're
control deck.
If you're ahead and they don't have anything on board, this is like insane. If you just have one creature on the battlefield and you know your opponent can't play creatures or planeswalkers the next turn, you just get to attack 2 turns for free. I mean, you're going to attack 1 turn for free anyway.
They still get to keep their best creature or planeswalker, though.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, if you're ahead where they don't have anything on board, and you guys are in, like, top deck mode, then, like, yeah, your opponent can't play creatures even if they draw it.
And you're going to sacrifice all your creatures but 1 when you're ahead to play this?
Well, this is assuming that you have, like, 1 or 2 creatures on board already, or 1 or 2 planeswalkers.
I'm saying, like, in your head, you have, like, more creatures than them. You're not playing this.
Well, that's, like, the whole thing about the board wipe, though, is, like, you don't play it to... You don't play board wipes to put a headboard state even further ahead. You're playing it so that you can catch up to get back into the game. Like, I think probably 85% sure, maybe 90% sure, if I ever play a white deck and I see this, I'm going to pick it. And, like, that could be wrong of me in the way that I build decks, but I think with my playstyle, I'd like to have some kind of, like, contingency plan against whenever I'm playing, especially in, like, a limited environment.
Huh. Well, I guess I can't change your mind, so...
I mean, like, I could bring it down to a C+.
We're going to disagree a lot on this one.
I could... What, did you say D?
I said D.
Okay. That's fine. Wander Strike!
Alright, we're just moving right along.
Just moving on.
Wander Strike.
Oh, man. Alright.
So I gave Wander Strike a B-. Normally I would give expensive unconditional removal like this, like maybe a C+. But I think that Proliferate is really valuable, especially in a white deck. Or a green deck even.
I can see that. Maybe I undervalued it. I said C+. I could probably bump it up to a C- because it is exile, not just destroy, which means that it takes it out of your opponent's graveyard for any effects that are able to incorporate that, especially with the black spell that gets back a creature and a planeswalker. So you can take kind of like half of that out, and then the Proliferate is something also not to scoff at. So I can definitely see a B- here. Going up from the C+, yeah.
Alright, B- it is then.
Bulwark Giant. We got the lady that sings. The fat lady. As she's squishing Yoda.
I think that's a goblin. Whatever.
It's an orange Yoda.
I think this card is... It costs 6 mana, and most white decks aren't going to want it, but it can bring you back from behind. So you can kind of stabilize a board. Like a 3/6 is pretty good stats, and 5 life is decent. That being said, I still think this card is a D.
I gave it D+. If it was 3 life, it would definitely be like a D, D-, but 5 life is pretty huge. A fourth of your life back.
5 life is a lot.
And a 3/6 to boot.
Because it's 5 life, I think it stabilizes better than most people might think. And I think 5 life is a lot better than 1/1/1 soldier. Like this card that we saw in RNA, 5 life is a lot better than a 1/1.
Take it cases. Like almost every time.
Yeah. And that card was like, well, like that card in RNA was pretty bad, but that one was probably like a D-, and that's why I think this is a D instead. Alright, Sunblade Angel is our next card on the first page.
Woo! Woo!
I gave this card...
Look at all these things it can do. It's like a Swiss Army knife. Where is it? Oh, it's on the first page.
I thought... I couldn't decide between a C- or a C+ or a B- on this card. I think it's really good, and I think your opponent's usually going to have removal to get through it. So maybe it should be a B- because it's like almost a bomb.
I put it as C-. It's definitely huge. Like it's something that's just going to be like insane, right? It's
C-.
so many, or C+.
Oh, I thought you said C-. I'm like, what? No. It's definitely C+.
No. I don't think it gets into the B range until it's a 4X. But I definitely think it's a solid C-. It's a higher pickup.
C+. Stop saying C-, Alex.
Am I saying C-?
Yeah, you are.
Oh shit. C+
for Sunblade Angel.
C+. All right. Perihelion number 2. What happened to number 1? We don't talk about it.
We don't talk about number 1.
All
right, Perihelion the second.
Right.
What do we think about that?
We might have some disagreements here, but I think it's one of two choices. I think it's either a D, which is probably what we're going to agree upon, or I think it's a solid C.
I think it's definitely a bomb. Like, if you're attacking with that, you're going to win this game. However, this card requires you to jump through a lot of hoops. It's got a lot of setup costs. It costs 8 mana, which is the biggest setup cost. And then Crew 4 is a huge deal. But if you get to attack with it, you're like gonna win, because you're gonna hit it for 5 in the air, plus 2 4/4 angels. That's 13 damage in the air. And one of those angels can crew it if you really need a flying first strike 5/5 instead of like on the backswing. Or one of those angels can crew it and attack next turn, and then they're definitely dead. If you attack with this twice, they're super dead.
I mean, it's like it's getting up there to the
but because
Tetra, like, right? Because it's
because
making
of the setup costs. I gave this card a D.
Yeah, I gave it a D. But if you have like a ramp deck going in green, it's, I don't want to say easy, but it's very manageable to get up to 8 mana. Like, there's so many mana producers, there's so many mana rocks. There's definite ways to get it to be played on, like, turn 5 or 6. And I think that with the mana creatures available to us, that the crew cost is semi-minimal. Outside of that, if you get to be so lucky as to draft it with the Boar God, then, you know, that's fun.
Boar God let you put vehicles into play tapped and attacking?
I thought it was... Oh, it doesn't see it as a
It's only
creature, huh?
creatures, isn't it? It has to be a creature card, I believe.
Oh, okay. Well, never mind. Anyway,
Yeah, just creatures.
just creatures? Okay. I
think
thought
Borg-
it was
I think
going
if you
to-
have the Boar God and it's attacking, you're doing well enough.
So, like,
You don't need something like this.
outside of that, I mean, I guess you could get it with, like, Karn, but... Again, you're needing, like, rares to get it. Like, so the only deck that I think you're going to make it in is, like, if it's, like, a ramp deck or maybe... I don't even know what it... Just the ramp decks, I guess.
So what did you rate it then, Alex?
If you put it in a ramp deck, I think it's a solid C. If it's in any other deck at all possible, it's a D. Because its mana cost is just too oppressive.
I think it's just a D. I think you're gonna,
Well, you have...
when you have this card, you're going to play it, like, 20% of the time, maybe.
Well, yeah, but if you're in green, you have, like, 2 different mana producers. Then when you have the artifacts as well, there's 2 different mana rocks. Like, there's ways to get up to that mana. And it's definitely... It has potential to be good, but... It's just so hard and it's very fringe.
But if you're only putting in the ramp deck, I think it has to be good.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying, like, I gave it a D, but if you can get it into a ramp, then it's going to bump it up.
Okay. And moving on. One more white card.
Finale of Glory!
This card.
Dun, 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 Mythic!
It's our first finale, and they're all mythic, and
It's fun.
I'm glad they're mythic because I don't want to be playing against these cards limited all the time.
Not at all. That'd be horrible.
I think on rate this card is amazing at everything at like X equals 3 or greater. This card's just extremely dumb. At 2, it's like solid. We've had cards like that before where you get 2/2/2 soldiers or 2/2/2 tokens with vigilance. There was a card like that in Dominaria,
Is it
which was
uncommon?
pretty solid. No, that was a common.
It was common. Okay.
But like, this card is just dumb. And if you're gonna ever cast it for X is 10 or more, if your opponent doesn't have a board wipe, they're just dead.
What is it like?
They can't even have a counter spell. Like, we'll get into the counter spells later, but the only counter spell that can counter this is the one that makes them so they can counter unless they pay 2, which will probably get them.
So if you have, like, if you do it for 10, you have 40 power of angels, 20 power of soldiers. If that doesn't get it done, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, Crush Descent is the card I'm talking about. So one thing we noticed when we were looking through
Oh,
the
yeah.
set is there's not many counter spells. There's the only counter spell that could possibly counter a non-creature, non-planeswalker card is Crush Descent, and that's conditional where they can just pay an extra 2.
Oh, Spell Curse. Or,
Yeah.
no, what's the
6-8?
2-mana one? From the previous sets?
Quench?
Quench, yeah! Quench that thirst
Quench
for 2
plus the
mana.
2/2.
I gave this card a B. I think that it's... I should probably rate it a B+, because it's an actual bomb. I think that you're definitely, like you said, not playing it for anything less than 3, because you're not getting the full functionality of it. But like as a 6-7 drop, it's just, at the top end of your curve, is just amazing.
Yeah.
It does a lot of stuff that you want to be able to do.
It's not a creature, but it's definitely a bomb. It's hard to deal with because it's on so many different bodies. Like, they kind of need a board wipe or they're dead most of the
I'll
time.
move it up to a B+. I like that.
B+ for Finale Guarded, which is our last white card.
Last white card.